Hi everybody, I'm Todd Creager, and what I do is I help couples deal with crises such as infidelity. I also help couples rekindle passion so they could feel alive with each other for the long term. And I also help individuals deal with trauma using an approach called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Today what I'm talking to you about is causes of sexual addiction. How it plays out, how I see it with the clients that come into my office is in a variety of ways. Now, before I go into that, actually, I just want to define the word addiction because it's used so much. I am not a big fan, actually, of the word addiction because it's one of those general words that use so much it doesn't mean a whole lot. But in a small sense, I mean, in a compact sense, what addiction is when somebody does something or takes something or ingests something that they do it to the point where they're risking something that's valuable to them, whether it's their work, their health, or their relationship. So that is a very succinct definition of addiction. But basically what I look at is what happens to couples when that happens and how can I help them? What happens to individuals when that happens and when I can help them? So anyway, the various ways it shows up is, number one, I might see someone who does compulsive porn watching. They may not be doing anything with any other person, texting any other person, but they do compulsive porn watching. Again, it doesn't mean once in a while porn watching, but compulsive porn watching. And it gets to the point where they are not focused on their current relationship, or they're losing sleep over it, or it's affecting them health-wise in some other way. So that's one way it shows up. Another way is communicating online with escorts or prostitutes, even just flirting. Some of these people will come in and say, I don't have an addiction because I didn't even meet the person. But if they are constantly looking, flirting, getting titillated and aroused by making these contacts, that could be considered a sexual problem, if not a sexual addiction. Another is multiple affairs. So when people have multiple affairs, can't just say one affair because that doesn't establish a pattern, but with having multiple affairs outside a committed relationship, that could be due to a sexual addiction. Not always, but definitely could be. And it's definitely something to explore. And the last one is when a partner makes unreasonable sexual demands on their partner. I've had people where they've had sex like every day and the other person is not satisfied and they're angry that the partner doesn't do it twice or 3 times a day. Okay, so that's another way that shows up. Now, what are some of the causes of sexual addiction? Well, one, in terms of something I see a lot, is there's trauma, usually sexual trauma. Many times when I see someone who is presenting as a sexual addict, that they have had some kind of molest or abuse or rape in their history. What happens is oftentimes they've learned very young to pair sex, which could be a loving, wonderful, healthy thing, but it could be paired with feeling shame or feeling out of control, or that sex is something that's paired with secrets, so that the way I get really turned on by sex is when it's secretive or taboo. And that could be from early trauma. It's a word called trauma bonding, where people recreate the old trauma. The second cause of sexual addiction is when it becomes the behavior of choice for someone to self-soothe. These people are usually not very good at learning to soothe themselves. Maybe they didn't have parents that were able to tune into their pain, and so they were left on their own a lot, and they didn't have caring people that they could use to help soothe them when they needed them. And so this is what they do to relax and be peaceful, just like a lot of drugs and alcohol that people use to soothe themselves. The other cause of sexual addiction is actually similar, but in a way the opposite. It's they didn't have parents that helped lift them up, that didn't stimulate them in healthy ways. And so they have this empty feeling inside, and they use sex to make them feel alive, to get a shot of adrenaline, to get upregulated. And then the fourth is I have found sexual passivity. Some people that they're sexually passive, they meet their sexual needs without the risk of losing someone important to them, or without being judged or rejected by somebody important to them. They don't have to deal with the other person's differences and wants than they. So this is the way they do that, and it's just easier to do that than deal with a real live person that can reject or resist. So depending on the cause of what we determine to be the cause of the sexual addiction, that determines how I treat that person. So if there's trauma involved, I'll usually use a trauma treatment such as eye movement desensitization and reprocessing to help them process it and move on. If they have problems with self-soothing, I teach them how to relax in other ways. What are healthy ways to soothe themselves? How do they learn to calm down? Meditation, yoga, exercise, outdoor activities that are not competitive, creativity, playing music, doing art. The third cause is when they need to be enlivened. We look oftentimes with these people, they're not doing anything else that stimulates them. They don't find their passion. They don't even know what they want. So their lives are about maybe going to work, doing their duty and tasks, and their one way to feel alive is through sexual acting out. We want to help them discover those things that really get them turned on and stimulated. And in terms of if sexual passivity, if that's the cause, that's when we help the person get more assertive, learn to be courageous, take more chances, develop some sexual confidence, be willing to be rejected, and learn to develop some resilience around that. So those are the things that we do. So this is kind of a complete discussion, I guess one-way discussion, on sex addiction regarding how it presents, the causes, and how to treat it. There's a lot more information I have on it. If anybody you know or yourself or your partner is struggling with this, I'm a wonderful person to contact. One more thing is click on the link that has my free handout on causes of sexual addiction, where I get into it and I could get into it a little deeper. So thank you for listening. This is Todd Creager, making the world safe for love.